Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, or Tiger Tank 1-2, however you want to call me, I don't really care. And welcome back to World of Tanks Weekly. This is the 12th iteration, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, probably the longest running series that I have not really, broken apart after like 2 or 3 weeks. So let's keep that going. There's a lot of stuff to cover, and the very first thing are going to be styles. Then we're going to jump into the Rinoceronte, that is the Italian tier 10 heavy tank. And we're going to check out some of the rebalancing as well. And yeah, that should cover the entire spectrum for today. So let's jump over to the styles and check them out. So the first styles that we're going to be covering out of like 3 styles today is going to be the 4-leaf Clover. Now, these renders are made by the artist Ekaterina Buriak, right down there on the right, you can see it. And it's supposed to be a FV4202 with an Irish tint. And you can see it's very green. It's a tank that actually fits the role perfectly, in my opinion. If you look at the back of the tank, there is so much detail going on. You have like the 3-leaf, which stands for luck. You have like the inscription, luck is believing you're lucky. You have a pot of gold. You have the little green hat. You have like a bagpipe, which I did not know was like mainly Irish. I thought it was more Scottish. But then you also have like the instruments, and you have this Irish flag. Well, it's not exactly the Irish flag, but it's a flag that represents Ireland, I think. To be fair, I'm not a specialist on Ireland, so I'm not the best person to ask about Ireland, but I think like stereotypically this fits Ireland perfectly. You have the harp at the back, you have a bow, I think, somewhere in there, or guitar, and all in all, this style looks really interesting. I think it looks really cool. It's like a style that Wargaming would release on St. Patrick's Day, and yeah, it's very green, and I think people will probably enjoy it when it hits the World of Tanks stores. I'm not sure how you're going to be getting this kind of style, but you probably have to buy it with gold, or you have to buy it for real money. So yeah, I don't think that they're going to be selling this skin for credits. Maybe they'll give it out. It could be an event skin, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So we're moving on to the dazzle style set, and you can see right here we have the dazzle style on a Batchat artillery. I think it's either the tier 9 or tier 10. I haven't really played the French artillery at all, so I cannot really tell. I just know the vehicle from killing it eventually when we end the rounds usually. But it looks really cool. It's like an abstract skin that is very simple, especially if you just looked at the 4-leaf Clover. It has like these lines that are going all over the place. Like there's no real unity, like no lines are going in the same direction. They're kind of spread all over the place, and it reminds me of World War I battleships, World War I cruisers, destroyers, where they had like different kind of patterns all over the ships. Each pattern going into a different direction, and it was not like camouflage to hide your ship out on the sea, because everyone could obviously see the ship, but it was making it a lot more difficult to predict its movements because of the different lines, and from distance, when you're having to engage ships from like 5 to 6 kilometers, maybe even more, with your huge guns. You gotta know in which direction that ship is heading, right? And that's going to be very difficult if the ship is just constantly, if you have that many lines all around, it's going to be a bit more difficult to really get a lead on the ship. So I think that is certainly not going to be helping you when you're playing World of Tanks with this skin, because I don't think that anyone is going to be that confused when they see you running around with the skin. But it certainly does look nice. If you look at those pictures right here, you have 2 of them, 2 of the Batchat artilleries looking at each other, hopefully just nuking one another, and they look really nice. I think I like both of the I like this. I like the skin. I'm not sure if there are like different versions for like like 4 or 5 different variants of the skin, but I don't think so. It looks really nice. It's a skin that I would probably buy myself. And yeah, we don't really know yet when it's going to be released. All of these informations are still, quite new, so we don't know when it's coming to the game. The last style set is about the Day of the Dead, which is, I think, a Mexican holiday. As you can see right here, an all-season style to commemorate the annual holiday of remembering the dead on November 1st to 2nd. The holiday, which is celebrated in Mexico and other Latin American countries, can trace its roots to the Aztecs and other indigenous peoples. It is believed that the souls of the dead awaken and return to the living world to their loved ones. In turn, their living family members treat the deceased as honored guests and provide the deceased's favorite foods and other items as offering. So I think it's a really cool tradition. Instead of mourning the death, you kind of are honoring them and celebrating them. So I think that's kind of cool. And you can see the styles are very colorful. You have these skulls that are really colorful, and you have this green kind of like background, which is really cool with the yellow or orange and white. And I think this style looks really cool. So you also have like a blue version of it, and I think a purple version of it. We'll check them out just in a second. And you can see that the skulls right here are either in red or in white. And it looks really cool as well. It's a bit dirty right there because of the exhaust, but this is a style that I would certainly put on my vehicles. Right here, this is the purple one. I think the purple one pops out the most if you look at it, especially if you have a light source. If you're in the shadow, it's going to be rather dark. But if you're in the light, if you're playing on a map that is very well illuminated, this skin looks really, really cool. I think my favorite, though, is probably the green one. If the green one is very well illuminated, it just pops out. The yellow or orange, whatever you see, I think it's kind of a yellow. It's a bit of an orange as well. Let's say this orange-yellow color mixed with the white, the green, the lighter green, the dark green, and this pink makes it really pop out, and it looks really cool. So this is going to be a skin that I think they'll be releasing quite soon, probably for this Day of the Dead event or holiday. And I think a lot of people will pick this up because it looks really cool. So that pretty much concludes the 3D styles. We're going to move on over to the Rinoceronte right now, and let's check out the Rinoceronte. So, if you have forgotten how the Rinoceronte or what the Rinoceronte was, it is a tier 10 Italian heavy tank, and it looks like this on this picture. It's basically just a huge weapons platform. It's a tank, with a 127 millimeter gun with the Italian auto reloader feature. But it's going to be a bit different than the Italian medium tanks. But still, it looks really kind of interesting, in my opinion. It is going to be coming out with a 2150 HP. Like, all of these stats are still going to be subject to change. So if Wargaming decide that it's too much HP, they might still, chef it down to maybe 2100 or maybe 2050. Depending on how well the tank performs. But at the moment, it's at 2150 HP. It has a 770 horsepower engine with a mass of 44.72 tons with the max load of 70.95 tons. So you're going to be able to fill this bad boy up with almost 30 tons of equipment, ammunition, all that stuff. But I don't think that anyone is going to be able to get this vehicle fully maxed out with 70 tons. It's kind of crazy. So the power to weight is 17.22 horsepower per ton. That is quite good. You have 50 kilometers per hour top speed, which is very nice for a tier 10 heavy tank. That's going to be in the realms of an IS-7. Not as fast as the IS-7, but similar to it. Not as fast as the AMX-50B, but you know, quite well, similar to it. Could be, I think, on the level of a chieftain, maybe a bit faster. Then you have 18 kilometers per hour moving backwards, reverse. That's obviously not that amazing, but yeah, tanks in the reverse aren't very fast, to be fair. The hull turning speed is 29.2 degrees per second. Turret turning speed is 26.07 degrees per second. For a heavy tank, that is okay. It's nothing too amazing. It's nothing to write home about. You know, medium tanks would be crying if they had anything of that sort. But for heavy tanks, it's decent. It's okay. You still have 50 kilometers per hour top speed. So yeah, you got that going for yourself. Mobility-wise, I think this vehicle is going to be quite interesting, quite decent. View range 390, no 400 meters view range. So yeah, 390. Probably try to use something with optics. Could be helping your tank quite a lot. The armor on this vehicle is going to be quite interesting. So right now we only have like just the stats for the front, the side, and the rear. It's probably going to be like the most heavily armored place. And yeah, we'd have to check out the vehicle once it comes out on the test server, because we cannot really tell how well the armor is going to be at this point. But 135 millimeters frontal armor at tier 10 as a heavy tank is not a lot. Although if we scroll down, you can see that the hull is a bit kind of, you know, rounded, so it might be more difficult to actually get through it, but 135 millimeters is not a lot. So I think relying on the armor on this vehicle is going to be quite difficult if you're not hull down. 75 millimeters on the side of the vehicle, 40 on the rear, so you're going to be quite susceptible to high explosive shells. Then 190 on the turret. This is going to be quite interesting because you can see the turret is very small and it's just a small part at the back of the tank, and the gun sticks out massively. So all of this right here is still a part of the turret. Now this gun mantlet, or this entire gun right here, is probably going to be like a hitbox. So anyone shooting at it from the side is probably going to be able to destroy or, you know, penetrate the tank by just shooting the gun, since the turret is not extending as far forward and it's just a very small part right there. So 110 millimeters on the side, I think it will not count for the gun either. It is encased in this additional armor right here, I think. But to be fair, I think it's still easy to pen that on the side. 110 on the side of the turret, 50 on the back. Yeah, the armor is certainly not something that's going to win this tank any rewards if we look at it right now. But hull down, since this tank is going to get 10 degrees of gun depression, it might be just good enough with the angling as well. Could be very interesting. Now, the main star of the show is obviously going to be the 127mm Auto Melara gun. This gun has a 490 alpha damage output. That is the same level as the IS-7 and the Object 277, I think. That is going to be very impressive. It is an auto reloader. It has 268mm of pen with the standard shell, where I'm not sure if it's going to be AP or APCR, but 268 always kind of was APCR in my eyes. 310 could be heat, but it also could just be another APCR shell. It would be very interesting to see if this tank would get APCR and heat as a combo. That would certainly make it a lot more flexible. And then you have 2043 damage per minute. That is for a tier 10 not very high, to be fair, but still your magazine, which you can reload, holds 3 rounds, and yeah, the in between reload between shots is 3 seconds. 19.6 seconds for a single shell, 16.6 for 2 shells, and 14.4 seconds for the last shell. So overall, the total time of reload is going to be 50.61 seconds. But at the same time, you got to keep in mind this is an auto reloader. Auto reloaders are more flexible than auto loaders because obviously you don't have to clip. You can just fire, and even if they got you like in a tight spot and you're about to die, you can still reload and then shoot once more. So you just have a bit of a more extended reload time with a single shell, but still, it's rather nice in my opinion. Now the accuracy and the aiming time are very interesting because at 100 meters, you're going to be having 0.32 accuracy, which is rather good, I think, for a heavy tank. 0.32 is rather nice. Aim time of 1.44 seconds is also very, very good. So this tank seems to be a very good tank for medium to maybe long range engagements. And I think I can see this tank holding up very well with the armor that it gets from medium to long range engagements, because it doesn't seem to be a frontline brawling vehicle. I don't think it is supposed to be that. It could do the role a little bit, I think, but I think the medium range, the middle range is probably going to be the best part for this vehicle. 10 degrees of gun depression is also very good for those hill battles. 15 degrees of gun elevation is decent. It's okay. It's nothing too crazy. You're going to have 33 rounds in your entire tank. That is at least, well, I think it's enough. Could be more. But when are you going to be using all the 33 shells? Probably not that often. Then you have 3 members in your crew, the commander, the driver, and the gunner. And the camouflage values are not that important. It's a cool looking tank in my opinion. It has like a little thing next to the turret right there. This is like, I'm not sure what it is. This is a part of a turret. But it's going to be quite interesting to see this tank in action once once it will be released. So we're moving on to the next topic. We're talking about the vehicle rebalancing. So the last topic for today is going to be about the high tier medium vehicle rebalancing in update 1.10.1. What a mouthful. So yeah, the test server, which is I think currently still live, isn't something that I did try this time around. I didn't download the test server. I did not play the new medium vehicles with the new patch. I'm waiting for the release of the test server, onto the live server, because I mainly own all of these vehicles in my game. So I'm just going to be testing them once they are coming out. So we're going to skip this right here because I already read through it. We're going to go into the detail immediately. So probably the most interesting change are going to be happening to the object 140, the 1-1, the Chinese tier 10, and the Chinese medium tank line from tier 7 all the way to tier 10, and the German tech tree with the E50 and the E50M, as well as with the Panther 2. So the E50M is a tank that actually is very good in my opinion, but it was just lacking the armor on its turret. The turret, which is at the moment 197 millimeters thick at the front, is just not good enough to withhold any shots from basically any tier 10 or tier 9 vehicles. So if you are engaging this tank, one-on-one and you're face-hugging it, it's very easy to, take out a E50M. And that's exactly where they have, looked at the problem and where they are fixing it right now. So the E50M is going to get a major overhaul with the armor. We're going to get better frontal turret armor right here. You can see it's going to be 267 millimeters thick. I think that is a very good number because now people will need to fire gold instead of just the standard AP shells going right through your cheeks. It's still very flat, but it's going to be holding a lot more. It's going to be a lot better armored, and it's going to stop a lot more shells from penning your turret. Now, they're also going to be changing the cheeks on the side, which were 250 millimeters thick previously, to 480 millimeters. Now, that is almost an increase by 250 millimeters. Yeah, that is pretty crazy because these areas right here were very easy to pen, especially right next to these viewports right here. The viewport for the commander, I think, the viewport maybe for the gunner. And they were obvious weak spots. People shot at them. Now it's 480. It's going to be very tough to get through them. You still have the cupola on top. The cupola is still going to be a weak spot, but your front turret armor is no longer going to be as weak as it was previously. We have to check it out, but I think this is a good compromise. 267, I think that's good. And they can still pen you if they're using premium shells. And if you're like not wiggling your turret around, and if you're not, moving around. But it should be a lot better than it is currently. Because this tank, other than that, really still is a very good tank and didn't really need any other changes. But the turret armor was very much needed to get a buff. Now the turret itself, the gun itself is also going to get a buff. From the 200 millimeters, it's going to get 270 millimeters right on the gun. I think the gun mantlet is obviously not in that category, but the gun itself is going to be better armored. So this is very nice. This is something that was needed very much. This is for the E50. You can see that the E50 now is going to also get upgrades on the gun. 230 millimeters of armor thickness. 229 on the flat part of the turret. So it's going to not be as good as the E50M, but it's going to be better than it was previously. So it's going to get an increase by about 30 millimeters of armor. That's rather nice. That's very, very good. So also the same spot as the E50M, like these viewports right there, they're also going to be upgraded by about 200 millimeters of additional armor. So that's definitely something that was needed. At the same time, the E50M is also going to get more pen with its 10.5 centimeter gun. It's going to be increased by 10 millimeters, 230 millimeters of pen instead of the 220. And it's also going to have more alpha damage with its 88 millimeter gun, which is stock from 240 to 280. Same with the Panther 88, the Panther 2. Both of these tanks will get better alpha with their 88 millimeter gun. But the armor, I think, will not be adjusted on them just yet. Or it might be, but they're not really showing that in this patch, to be fair. They're also kind of nerfing the Leo PTA. It's going to be getting worse aim time, and its gun dispersion while on the move or turning the turret and the hull will be increased by a bit. So it's not going to be that much of a difference. The Object 140 will get better hull armor, I think, more armor on the upper glacis, and it's going to get 7 degrees of gun depression. Now this is very interesting because the T62 is still in the game, but the T62 only has, I think, 5 degrees of gun depression. But since that tank has been officially taken out of the tech tree, it will not be reworked, I think, in that sense that the Object 140 will. So moving on, we're going to check out the Chinese 121 and the other Chinese tanks. And the 121 is going to get some serious buffs. It is going to get more HP. It's going to get 100 more HP from 1950 to 2050. It's going to get more pen by just about 4 millimeters from 258 to 262. And it's also going to get better upper hull armor. So the glaciers is going to be increased by 30 millimeters, so it's going to be 270 millimeters thick. Now that kind of gives it a very similar vibe to the Object 430U, because the Object 430U kind of made this tank redundant, and that's exactly what they are kind of addressing right here. So yeah, 100 HP more, a bit more pen, and better hull armor. So I think these changes will certainly have an effect on this vehicle. I don't think that they made any differences to the gun handling or anything like that, but I think these changes will already have quite a big impact on the 121. The WZ-120 will also be overworked. The WZ-120 will get more HP, 1,750 instead of this 1,650. It will get better speeds. It's going to be 60 kilometers per hour going forwards from now on. It will get better gun handling and better DPM. The reload time will drop from 12 seconds to 11 seconds, and the DPM will increase from 2,200 to 2,400. And the gun dispersion will decrease when, turning the turret, and I think the gun handling will also be better, generally speaking. The T-34-1 and the T-34-2, like one of them is the tier 7, that one is the tier 7, and the tier 8 will get more HP. The T-34-1 will get 100 HP as well, added onto it, as well as the T-34-2. The T-34-2 and 1 will get better DPM, and the 100mm gun will be improved in accuracy and damage. And the T-34-2 will also get better hull armor from 140 to 200. That is an increase of 60mm of armor. That is a lot of armor that is added to a tier 8 medium tank. So all in all, I think these changes were certainly needed, especially on the Chinese tech tree and the E50M and the E50, because both of them were just kind of, something didn't feel right with the lack of turret armor that you had. And now, like, having them all on a certain level, I think this is a very good start, a very good position where you can really do good without them being overpowered. So I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this week's changes. As always, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.